Hi everybody, my name's Adrian Morgan. I'm Lead Customer Experience Architect across APJ. I'm joined on stage by Chris Thornley, Head of Channels Technology of One New Zealand, formerly Vodafone New Zealand. Now this presentation is aimed at anyone, business or technology, that has an interest in or an accountability for the contact center or customer experience. In it, you'll learn how Vodafone New Zealand implemented Amazon Connect, transformed their business, and continues to innovate at an incredible pace. At the end of the presentation, we'll go through some of the outcomes that Vodafone have achieved, and we'll share how you can also join that sort of transformational experience that Vodafone have been through. Now, do you remember the optimism that everybody felt as 2020 approached? 2 weeks before that, I was in New Zealand and talking to Vodafone in their boardroom about the crossroads they were at. Their legacy technology stack for contact centers was far too complex. And it was really limiting their ability to respond to their customers, respond to the market, and meet the needs of the business. In our discussions, we identified that there are 81,000 IVR options. 81,000 different ways that a customer could enter Vodafone's contact center to try to get to the right place. And in 30% of the cases, they didn't get to the right place. That's 81,000 different ways for 5 million New Zealanders to speak to the largest mobile carrier across New Zealand. Change in an organization like that was slow, really, really slow. Simple announcement changes would take days, if not weeks. Complex changes were really avoided. If you did try to do a complex change, often it would break the environment. All of this was ClickOps, not DevOps. When you did initiate a major change, the regression testing would take weeks, if not months. And this meant their ability to respond to the market was just delayed and they were getting left behind. And even when they did conduct a change, there was no data to inform the business if that change was successful. There was no way of doing A/B testing. There was no way of telling if the change implemented actually improved Net Promoter Score or if it decreased average handle time. It was evident that there were major challenges that were getting in the way of Vodafone performing at the rate that they expected to. Now, these issues were coming to a head because in 2019, the Vodafone CEO, Jason Paris, had set a strategic objective. Number one was to encourage customers to adopt a digital-first mindset. And number two was for the organization to become agile. The legacy contact center solution was hampering these abilities. And effectively, the contact center organization was failing to meet its goals. And that was particularly evident in comparison to the rest of Vodafone. This is how in early 2020, I came to be sitting down in our Auckland boardroom with Vodafone, surrounded by whiteboards and paper, conducting a mechanism called working backwards. Working backwards is an Amazon mechanism, and it's really to define the end result and customer experience before we even consider writing a line of code. The boardroom looked a little bit chaotic. We had goals and objectives. We had personas of agents, looking at what the agent experience could look like. We were looking at what the future customer experience could look like for those end users, the retail, the business customers. And we were taking into account some of the contractual requirements as well. Vodafone had a mixture of offshore and onshore contact centres. There was a real appetite to release new products into the market. We had identified all sorts of things, including use cases that were very distant into the future about branches and how we could leverage branch conversations. And out of that session, we came up with these 4 goals. So the first one was to simplify. Vodafone didn't just want to take the legacy technology stack and the problems and shift it into the cloud. They wanted to simplify their environment. There was a massive shift for Vodafone to really make a fundamental change of experience. There was a huge desire to automate. Now, most contact centers think of automation around the customer experience. In Vodafone's case, the primary goal was to automate the deployment of change, to speed up testing and to speed up implementation and response. There was a massive desire to be an omni-channel contact center. And as part of that, they recognized that they needed a very open platform in order to respond to, let's face it, a market that is changing around how customers engage organizations. And then finally, they appreciated that in the contact center, it's pretty much the only place that customers really tell you about your product, about your service. They realized that there was an immense amount of data that could be unlocked and sent throughout the organization to inform product, sales, marketing. We knew at this point that Amazon Connect, our easy to use contact center service, was going to be at the heart of any contact center transformation that Vodafone was trying to do. And we really leveraged 3 core capabilities of Connect. Number 1 was the ability to use and create data at scale to personalize interactions. Number 2 was take that data and use it to drive artificial intelligence to automate transactions. And then finally, the ability to be code-driven to accelerate that change, testing, transformation. As we worked through all the complexity that Vodafone built up over time, there were 660 toll-free numbers in the organization. And we were able to bucket them into some quite simple categories. First off, there was the small numbers. These were primarily B2B customers, where simple message, single queue option, straight through, after hours message, that sort of thing. There was some slightly more complex auto attendants, where we had multiple options, some routing outside the organization. And then we had one, what I'm going to call an extra large. Now that was where the majority of retail customers would end up. The majority of retail customers, and Vodafone really wanted to differentiate their experience, provide a level of personalization, self-service that was beyond the capabilities of the legacy stack, and provide a dynamic experience so they didn't have to repeat, a customer didn't have to repeat themselves. To align with the goal to simplify, we created one pattern for 659 of the numbers. And that was one contact flow that was connected into Lambda, our serverless code, connecting into a DynamoDB that held all the configuration. So one contact flow connecting to Lambda, one DynamoDB. That DynamoDB would hold all the information, such as if a customer called in on a particular number, then what was the welcome message? What were the after hours messages? All of that configuration. And we really aligned those to that goal of simplify and automation. The contact flow pattern could be executed quite simply, and it meant the transition from the legacy stack to Amazon Connect could happen rapidly. For the extra large solution, we simply added Amazon Lex. Lex is inbuilt into Amazon Connect and is one part of the AI story of Amazon Connect. Amazon Lex understands the utterance of the customer, takes in the data. In Vodafone's scenario, we combine it with the personalized information that we have about that customer and choose where to route them. This is really how we think about contact centers and changing customer experience. Really taking that data and igniting it to predict and personalize every single interaction. So, for example, if you call in and you say, I've got an internet problem, and you only have a mobile phone product, to go and ask you, what product is it? Is it broadband? Is it internet? Is it mobile? We know. Now, of course, this was 2020. Anybody remember a big event that happened in 2020? Please raise your hand if you do. Thank you. COVID hit. Now, Vodafone had a mixture of onshore and offshore contact centers, as I mentioned. And all of a sudden, the plan we'd created had to be paused. The offshore contact centers had shelter-in-place rules enacted. They couldn't leave the house. Auckland, New Zealand locked down completely. Branches closed. And really, we couldn't scale any of the legacy technology to assist the volumes that had started to hit. And so, being an omni-channel contact center platform, we were able to jump into chat. What you can see on the screen now is the Vodafone agent dashboard. It's a really simple dashboard. It took 2 weeks to build, and within 2 weeks, Vodafone had chat up and running. It provided the agents with disposition codes, customer attributes, and importantly, it was designed so that those branch staff who understood all of the Vodafone services, products, and processes could simply jump on this dashboard and start using it with 15 minutes of training. Now, the volume kept going, it kept going up, and so Vodafone engaged one of our great partners, Local Measure, who implemented the Local Measure Engage desktop. That offered an increased omni-channel presence for them and gave the agents more information. And importantly, Local Measure worked to identify opportunities for self-service. Now, first off, those opportunities were very simple. They were FAQs. But at the exit of 2020, we hit a 40% success rate in self-service, demonstrating 2 things. One, customers were willing to adopt self-service if it's good. And the second one is, just because a customer has been in a digital channel doesn't mean they've attempted self-service in the first place. Messaging was now embedded in the organization and the operations of the business, so we moved back to voice. And now at Amazon, we use Tenants, and Tenants allow us to move quickly at pace. And when we introduced Tenants to Vodafone, they leapt on board with both the business and technology. And now, Chris, I'd love you to talk through some of these tenants and how they applied.
Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, so as Adrian mentioned, tenants are such a useful tool for us to derive our decision-making process. They make sure we're pointing towards a North Star and make sure we don't repeat the failures of the legacy. As you can see here, the tenants we established at the start, I'll call out a few of them, but most of them chapter into each other. So for example, simple and automated. Simple and automated is a way that we offset the problem we had with those 81,000 different ways of navigating through the platform. If we're not simple and automated, then we're just going to keep adding technical complexity to our landscape. Data and AI empowered. What's going to inform you about what you want to change? It's going to be the data that you're collecting inside your platform. Flexible and ready for growth. Making sure that the system is able to adapt to change and we're able to bring in other channels when needed as we grow through our process of going from 2020 all the way through to now. We need that to be continued. And lastly, the reusable and bought before built. At Vodafone in the past, or One New Zealand, we've been very good at building our own technology, but not very good at maintaining it going forward. And so identifying vendors such as Local Measure that can come in and support us in our channels so that we're not having to maintain that code. Because every piece of code we have at Vodafone is technical debt for us, really, because it's not there to serve the customer. Us writing our own code is not supporting our customers. So just elaborating on the diagram that Adrian had up at the start, this was the initial design. We had a simple chat interface coming through to Amazon Connect, a tactical agent desktop. We were funneling all that data through into our Snowflake data warehouse, and we were enabling it to be configured through Amazon DynamoDB and Lambda. You'll notice that this pattern is something consistent as we start elaborating on the solution as we go through from 2020 through to 2021. Okay, so now we're in 2021. We'll start on our voice journey. We've replaced our tactical desktop with local measure, which is now providing us with an omni-channel capability integrated into Amazon Connect and integrated into Operator, one of our other vendors that we brought in to look at our agent experience, because behind a great customer experience is an awesome agent experience. Are we getting good calls coming through those agents? Are we getting good MOS scores? Are we getting call dropouts? Are the agents desktops and working in working order, and do they have the right headsets enabled? We've got now expanding on Amazon Connect with AWS Lambda and Amazon DynamoDB to fill in the self-service journeys. And then finally, Lex has come in and provided us a great concierge experience to make sure that we're getting calls to the right agents at the right time. Finally, at the top, as you can see, we have Azure DevOps and Terraform, which is providing us that straight-through automated process of always releasing into production. If we look at the data aspects of this, we can see a consistent pipeline all the way through to Snowflake for every single piece of data we want to collect. So the first piece is our voice transcriptions through Contact Lens, our conversational logs of how people navigated through our IVR. At the bottom, we're looking at pumping through all of the events from Operator agent performance to see how our agent's performance is achieved from, is it a good call, was it a bad call, and how did that turn up in a TNPS or NPS result? We're looking at how our workforce is managed. So through intervariant workforce management, have we got the right agents on the right task at the right time? And then finally, how Amazon Lex is supporting our call flows and identifying customer intent and getting to the right place the first time. Now, if you look at all these things intersecting, you can actually start driving out, have we got a good contact center running? Have we got the right data being collected? Are we routing the customers to the right place? And are they having good conversations with our agents? Okay, so now moving on to 2023. We've now migrated everybody across from voice from our legacy platform into Amazon Connect, and we've started our team expanding out the channels. So with local measure and its asynchronous capabilities, through chat, through email, through WhatsApp and other social platforms, we've been expanding the front door. So giving the agents and the customers the best channel that they want to operate with us at the right time that they want to operate with us asynchronously. We're no longer having to need to have the customer sitting in front of a chat window on a desktop waiting for an agent to respond. We can actually go on and start solving their issue whilst they're waiting. Again, the team itself we jumped on high volume outbound and connected that in when it was available in Amazon Connect. This now gives us a centralized outbound dialing capability that's on the AWS platform. What that means is we're able to feed that with data coming from our Snowflake data warehouse so that we can dynamically drive calls out to our customers based off information that we've actually captured from them. So you get a low TNPS score or NPS score. Do we trigger an outbound dial then to that agent to communicate to that customer to find out how they can resolve their issue? Are we triggering outbound dials from repeat callers, people that are having bad experience? How are we connecting that through? And because it's part of the Amazon ecosystem, it's very easy to integrate. You can have EventBridge driving it, you can have S3 driving it, you can have whatever you need pumping into that high volume outbound capability. And lastly, I suppose, and this is just a good bridge back to the original diagram you showed, which was the very rudimentary chat-based interface that I built in 2 weeks. We've now got this interface provided by Local Measure. And as you can see here, it's now much richer. You can see on the left-hand side, multiple contacts on multiple different channel types. This is your omni-channel showing up. We can see in the middle, a really rich interface. And when I say rich, a lot of the chat interfaces I've seen in the past have been really windowed down into a very small segment of the real estate. And when you're trying to have a really good conversation in chat, you need that history. You need the ability to see quite in depth a long list of what's actually gone on with that customer. And lastly, on the right-hand side, we can see contextual information. Now, we have got a journey to go on with CRM at Vodafone. This is the starting point. It provides us with initial contact information that the agents can have a good conversation with the customer with. But it's not the intent to be replacing Ethereum just yet. Okay, what's the results we're seeing? Okay, across the board, $2 million cost reduction. And this mostly is driven from cost out of voice calls. So we're actually reduced 490,000 calls in the last year. And obviously you can see there that's an immediate benefit, not just for the agent's time, but also for your costs in Amazon. We no longer have to pay for voice calls. And that's also driven by reduction in call wait times, better optimization of the call discussions with the customer, and less transfers. We've seen an average handle time down 2 minutes. Mostly this is driven by self-service capabilities through two-factor authentication and getting the customer authenticated before it hit the agent. But also ensuring that the agent's got the right information to have that discussion straight off the bat. First call resolution's up by 10%. Now, this is not the greatest for us. We still want to go further with this. It is going to require us to get deeper into case management, which I'll talk about later. But it's still a remarkable benefit just from implementing an omni-channel platform. And as you can see, all these measures sort of show up as being a great customer experience in that customers are waiting less time for being contacted with an agent. They're taken to the right agent the first time. They're not sent around transfer loops. They're not having to call back as often. So which has seen our net promoter score up by 7%, 7 points. Okay, if we measure this back to the tenants then, if we say, okay, here's the tenants that we set off with. And I'll just remind you that the tenants aren't there as being a one-time only project-centered list of things that we will do. This is an ongoing thing. So ever since we left the platform and we've left the migration project, we've continued to evolve. I'll just call out a few of these here, but some remarkable ones are flexible and ready for growth. Because of the complexity of our legacy system, only 2 releases in 12 months, 2 major releases. And even those were fraught. People were worried about actually would they work or would they not work. And now we're doing 518 releases in the last 12 months. And even if you just look what happened when we went to One New Zealand, that was done in one night. We migrated all of the conversational flows across one-click effort. There was no outage time. We switched from one set of prompts to a second set of prompts, all driven by text. 81,000 pathways. We're down now to one single unified contact flow consisting of 10 reusable modules. That's payments, that's wait, queue music, it's top up, it's balance inquiry, etc. And those then resolve in only 200 queues. Platform growth and cost over time. Because of the calls out, we've seen a $41,000 month-on-month saving of our telephony charges. That's telephony charges only. It's not even those calls not hitting agents anymore. We've now got a great ecosystem of SaaS vendors that are supporting us with excellent roadmaps. And I'll call out Local Measure again in their ability to be really on the charge with Amazon. When Amazon's releasing a release, normally we'll find within, say, a few weeks, there's a notification that they're up to speed with that. And that's what we're looking at with those vendors, ones that are really getting behind a technology that's with us on the journey as well. Security, risk managed and compliant. I mean, if we throw the well-architected framework across our platform, because we're all infrastructure as code, automated, we have strict runways and guardrails in place. We're 99% compliant across all well-architected principles, and that 1% we can explain. Trust me.
I think that's an amazing, those are amazing outcomes for Vodafone New Zealand. And I've been very lucky to be on the journey as it's happened. So well done to the Vodafone team for these sort of outcomes. Chris, we were talking before about the size and the scale of the team that you used throughout the project and then now in operations and the type of people. Would you be able to share some insight into that?
Yeah, so during the project, big migration projects need big teams to execute them in the time frame that we needed. I think at the top, we were probably around about 50 FTEs on the project. And I'd say a large proportion of those, probably 60% were more technical on the higher end of your technical capabilities, right? We're now down to 7 that are running the ship, but also modifying the ship as we go. So with those 7, we've added outbound calling, we've added our asynchronous channels, we've done minor tweaks and fixes inside our pipelines, And we've really kept that momentum going. It's not something that we've just paused with.
Mm.
And that team is, I'd say, the reverse, probably 60, 70% business oriented versus technical.
That's really interesting in terms of, the types of adoption that you've been able to do, and the rate at which you've been able to take on new customer experiences, and new features that we've released. What's next?
So we've got a lot of data. We've got a lot of data that explains how our contact center is operating on a day-to-day basis. Are the queues large? Are the queues short? Wait time, average speed to answer, repeat callers, transfers, etc. What we need to get into now is understanding how do we change those figures. So yes, they're green across the board, but we want them greener. We want repeat callers down. We want transfers down. But to do that, we need to dig a little bit deeper into the data, and that's where leveraging contact lens with conversational analytics, which we have already, we just need to get the machine learning inside there to actually understand where the benefits are and uncover them. And the last one, Amazon Connect cases and case management in general at One New Zealand is an evolving project we need to get ahead of. And that's going to, I see that as being a major benefit in our first time resolution.
Great. I'm looking forward to having you back here in a year's time to tell us all about what you've achieved next. I think if you look at the transformation that Vodafone have gone through, there's a few key points. First off is transform, don't rebuild. The legacy technology stacks out there don't have all the new capabilities that something like Amazon Connect does. The ability to be able to use this data at scale, the ability to drive data-driven experiences, the ability to do reporting very, very differently to what you have been doing in the past. Be clear on your vision. At Amazon, we use the working backwards process, and that's really looking 1, 2, 3 years down the track. It's really, what is that vision of great customer experience into the future? Be really clear about that, but also don't be limited by what you have had on a legacy stack. Tenants bring clarity and speed. I see this often in projects. Vodafone is a great example of embracing tenants and just running with them and continuing on past the final bit of the project. With Agile DevOps, there's an opportunity to change how you do IT within the contact center, to increase the pace of change and increase the pace that you can innovate at. We talk a lot about Amazon and its pace of change. Last year, Amazon Connect had 87 feature releases. And I'm pretty proud to say I think Vodafone New Zealand have adopted them all. But you can only do that if you're trying to match the pace of change that we are with Agile DevOps. The final piece is around your data strategy. You're going to have lots of data. You can have transcripts of every single conversation. What are you going to do with that data? How are you going to use it to inform the organization, the strategy of the organization, and take it beyond just what's happening in the contact center? I encourage you all to visit Skill Builder, our online center, and explore over 600 free digital courses, hands-on labs and role-based games. And thank you all for attending the session. We would love you to complete the session survey. Thank you.